10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
There's no need to fear.
I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, cause I'm black.
Hey everybody! Welcome back to Super Black, an all-black panel podcasting experience where we talk about all things superhero, past, present, and future. From Marvel and DC to anime, there is no stone we will leave unturned as we take a deep dive into the genre of superpowered individuals and the worlds they inhabit. I am your friendly neighborhood host, Zuri Washington. I use she, her pronouns, and you can follow me on IG at Zuri with a fringe on top. That's Zuri with a Z, not Suri with an S. I'll leave it to the rest of today's super panel to introduce themselves. Take it away.
All right, you got Richard Harden tapping in. Good morning, everybody. I'm excited to share information. Oh, my pronouns. I'm he, him, his, and all day, every day, I keep thinking about ways that I could still be a superhero. We'll talk about it.
Hi, everybody. Omar Washington here. He, him. And you can't follow me on social media right now, but I will rectify that soon. And I'm here to have fun, talk comics, movies, and anything else that connects them.
Hey, what's up? Jamal James, here to be geek all day. He, him, his. You can follow me at the Jamal James on Instagram, Twitter, even though I don't use it that much. And you can even find me on Facebook.
And don't forget to follow the podcast on IG at Super Black Podcast, or you can follow us on Twitter, or you should actually do both. Follow us on Twitter as well at Super Podcast. And now that we are all assembled, let's get started. So today we are going to talk about why you gotta be black. So like why you gotta be black in terms of, you know, we have superheroes like Black Panther, Black Lightning. They had that whole segment where they talked about it on Falcon and Winter Soldier this year, and the kid called Falcon Black Falcon.
Black Falcon.
Black Falcon.
Because the assumption is that a black superhero must have black in front of their name. Why is that? Let's talk about it.
I mean, the most obvious thing that shoots out to me is because the norm was like everyone had to be white. Like if you were to be a superhero, you had to be white. That's like to say that someone is like I believe it's correct. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like Black Panther was the first black superhero. Is that correct? Am I just putting in the wind? I think that's true.
I believe that that's true, and maybe to further clarify, like he's the one who had his first comic, was a main character.
And I think I was just like, everyone else was white, so I feel like to put the black in there was just like, ooh, we're setting this up, like this is a black superhero, and let's have that like out there. And I think today we are all like, is the norm of what is just expected, what stays in your brain, like white centric? Why was it white centric? And I think we all have reasons about that with American history and stuff like that. But we know that we don't want that anymore. I think that's the truth.
I think, yeah, with Black Panther, I think it was a little easier for them to get away with it also because a Black Panther is a thing. So, you know, they could say Black Panther and then he'd be black. And then so you could kind of like, you know, and also because it happened pretty much during blaxploitation. So it was like, what else are you going to do? Right. It was also easy for them to do because of that. So.
And you can't have like Blade. You can't be like Black Blade. I mean, you could.
Never say never.
I mean, technically, that does work as a superhero name, Black Blade.
Black Blade does. Yeah.
It does. Huh.
Black Storm.
It has the necessary alliteration at the beginning of it.
Sure.
What happens with Black Blade. And I guess from a perspective point of view, one thing to think about, because of course, being far older than everyone, is the timing of comic books as a genre. Because I know as I was coming of age, it was when we were really getting the first set of who had been the comics or the ones that were in the comic strips converted to television. So I think the first character I remember as Black was Black Vulcan in the old Super Friends. I don't know if any of you remember that character.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what Black Lightning is now, kind of, but it's one of those things. I think there was a concerted effort in that time between late 60s, 70s, and 80s when I started reading was, okay, now we're going to have a Black character. We don't know anybody Black. What are we going to call it? We're going to be Black. I don't know what else we're going to be, but we're going to start with Black, and then I'm going to work backwards from there to see who this character is going to be. Right. So, and you think about, because I'll have to find it around the house. Marvel had that encyclopedia, the official handbook of the Marvel Universe.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, it's dramatic. If you see that B section, all of the street level criminals and the heroes. And it even goes a bit deeper just in that thought process of Black being a color that goes with the hero. Meaning, you got all the dichotomy of our language of Black and white. Black is good, white isn't. And at the time, I was dark skinned before it was in style. So, it was one of those things. You're like, I don't see heroes that look like me. But then as they started naming, because I think, I got my favorite right here. This is the official
Power Man.
Luke Cage, Power Man. That was like the first character. They didn't name him Black Power Man. It was Power Man. But just that idea of first making heroes that were Black, so it wasn't that all the bad guys or the criminals were Black, and then giving the name. And then I did have this brainstorming thing in my head. I started thinking of white characters named Black stuff. So I did come up with the Black Knight's a white dude about to show up in Avengers maybe, and then Black Cat. That's Felicia Hardy, rich white woman get a Black label. So you got those two, but other than that, I was like, wow, here's a Black section.
Black Widow.
Black Widow. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And so the same thing with like Black Panther. Like I said, you could be like, because Black Panther's a thing, just like a Black Widow and a Black Cat
exists, right?
they pre-exist.
Like you can get away with that. I was like, oh gosh, I don't even know if this is a non sequitur, but I think Black Knight is going to show up in Blade when it does film. That's my
happen. Yep.
With Mahershala. But gosh, I don't know what was the thing back then, but I just think it's just everything was just white centric. I think all the heroes were white for the longest time. That was the epitome of heroism because Black was not just not in fashion, but just like not equal.
Right.
We just weren't equal.
I find it interesting because the reason why I wanted to talk about this in general was because of the way that it was framed in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Because it was a little Black kid that called him Black Falcon. It wasn't like just some random white kid. It was a little Black kid. And with Sam eventually taking up the mantle of Captain America and being the first Black man to, in public eye, be Captain America, with Isaiah Bradley having been a secondary storyline in there. I think it was just really interesting to see how much it bothered Sam. I think like he's like, why? That's literally not my name. It's Falcon, period. Can you just calling someone by like what's in a name, I guess, and it was really important to him to be acknowledged as Falcon and then eventually as Captain America. So yeah, that's really why I wanted to like dive into that, because I think you're right. There are not that many characters. There are not that many crazy Black superheroes out, but like there's not that many characters that are Black, etc. But I think there's like this prevalence in the zeitgeist of the culture to just be like, oh, I don't remember their name. It's Black something though.
Yes.
It's gotta be Black something because.
Right.
When in doubt, just like female superheroes, it's like there's got to be a woman or a girl or something in their name. You have to know exactly that they are the gender so that you can be like, oh, this is a gendered superhero, or this is a Black superhero, or this is a yada yada yada. Obviously,
right? Because if you got Spider-Man, then you're like, ooh, if you got a different gender, it's got to be Spider-Woman. You can't be like you got to find that out. Like Yeah, Wonder Girl has to be like, yeah, that's the Wonder Woman, Wonder Girl. It's like I feel like I think sometimes the label is to make something easier instead of making something accurate. If that makes any sense to like that's where my brain goes when I'm just like, you need a way in that doesn't allow you to do any work to actually absorb the other person that is different from you.
Mhm.
Right.
That's my thing is like it's a sidetrack of laziness really for me in my brain. That's how I feel sometimes.
You know,
Well,
you can correct me and let me know if I'm wrong, but I
Mhm.
think it's really cool what they did with Black Lightning because I'm not sure. His character is very old, right?
Mhm.
But he wasn't really popularized, at least not for many, until the show.
Mhm.
And then I think did they change his lightning so that it's actually Black Lightning? It's different because if in the
Mhm.
comics and in on the in Young Justice, his lightning
Let
is
me look
black.
that up.
His
Oh,
lightning is
that's
not.
cool.
Yeah,
Right,
his
that's
lightning is
true.
actually black. So I don't know if it was originally black,
Well,
but
in
it's
the
well,
in the
is it?
cool
series,
that
it was blue, right? In the
it's a
TV
dark
show.
blue black.
Yeah,
It's like a blackish, like a maybe a little bit blue, but they call it black because it's a dark lightning. It's
because it's a
dark.
dark
It's a
lightning.
dark lightning. That's
It's
right.
not white.
Mhm.
So it was really cool, and I think they kind of changed it so that it's actually his power
Hmm.
and not.
And it's
So
mostly
he,
it has been
Okay.
blue. I know it's been blue in the show.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So
looking up
so
Okay.
images right
That's
now, and it definitely shows up blue.
That's
mhm.
interesting.
Hmm.
I mean, that would make more sense, like, or not more sense, but it just to retcon or to go back and be like, oh, let's just make the lightning black. So it's not just a matter of being like, he's a black character. This is his black name.
He
Um,
made a
Hmm.
he made a point of it too. I think in Young Justice when he said something about
which
you've never been
season?
hit
Because
with
I
black
missed one of
lightning.
the last season, I think. But
Uh, Probably 2 seasons ago.
okay,
He was
I
fighting
have to watch
somebody.
it.
One of the strong characters probably was off world,
Gotcha.
and he made a point of saying, being hit with black lightning.
Hmm.
Uh,
Oh, I think I
It
remember
was
what you're talking about.
different.
Yeah.
It was different than being hit with like other regular lightning.
I
Ooh,
uh
no, I
Well,
just
and
see blue.
then
I keep seeing blue. Dang it.
you're like, dang,
It's black in the middle with like a blue
with a
outline.
blue outline,
Mm, mm,
Yeah,
mm.
like a light blue outline, but it's
as
black
Ooh,
in the
opposed
okay,
to
middle.
I feel you. I feel you.
Mhm.
like white in the middle with a blue
Right.
outline, which would
Right.
just make, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest, when Black Lightning was released, like when it first came out, I was like, but where's Static Shock? Give me my Static Shock, bro. I
Hey,
was
bro.
like, oh, come
Well,
on.
they're
But
making Michael B. Jordan is producing a Static Shock
He
movie.
is.
but
That's
is
oh,
right.
it
is it
Static
really?
Shock or it's Static?
It's
Because
uh,
I liked
Oh,
that's a
his
good
name is actually
question.
Static, right?
his name
And
is Static. You're right. You're
yeah,
right.
I started collecting those comics, DC Milestone, when they first launched that
Hmm.
whole Black Comic Initiative that was seemed to exist outside of the DC universe, but then they
Right.
merged them. But I was collecting them when they first came out, and I had
Mhm.
it was just Static. And so when they brought Static Shock, I was like, I liked it. I loved the cartoon, but it was like, why'd they name him Static Shock? It was just strange to me. But
Uh,
it was strange.
I guess I just didn't know that much. When Static Shock came out, I was like at the particular age that the cartoon was for. So like I didn't think anything of it beyond a certain point. I was like, oh cool, this black kid is a superhero. And that's
Do
like
you
kind of the
think
extent of it.
Do you think it could be
Well,
because they wanted to kind of remove the bad connotation of the word static, like the James Brown, like static is a problem, and him being black?
But kind
well,
of
and it
like
is. I think it's it's kind of unique if we think about that power set right there between Static, Black Lightning, Black Vulcan. How many times there's been one black man in the squad with electrified powers? Because I don't know
Storm.
if any of you ever saw like the 70s.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Storm.
right. But you
Yeah.
think back to the 70s with Black Vulcan, that was, it was, I think they introduced him to the Justice League at the same time with like Samurai and
Hmm.
Apache Chief. So you ended up with Justice League had been white people, but now there's Black Vulcan, there's an Asian character, and there's a Native American, just here all of a
Mhm.
sudden at one point in time. And well, I'll pause right there because there is that thought about it is like why that set of powers ends up as a black character so often.
Right.
Hmm.
I have heard that
Okay.
conversation. as well.
I actually didn't even think about that, and that's actually I'm sorry, my brain is actually having. That's very true. And now I'm
Well,
thinking you just explained
if you
my
think about
mind.
lightning, right? Now that you bring that up, I never really thought about that, right? But if you think about lightning, lightning is raw, untapped,
Mhm.
aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and it
And sometimes
damages a
uncontrollable.
lot. And
Yeah.
right, right. So those are the first things that come to my mind. And
Yeah.
I'd never even thought about that before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big conversation on like Reddit and stuff. Like people are like, why do all Black superheroes have to have electricity? um, I've not gotten into that rabbit hole of Reddit, but I know it's a conversation that has been had for
Okay.
many years at this
Mhm.
point. But yeah, I would say that that's a lot to do with it, in terms of like why that particular superpower. Because if it's not, Luke Cage is like brute strength,
Power.
or use of your body as a part of your superpower. But when I
Well,
think of the main Black superheroes who have some kind of like, I'm not thinking of like Green Lantern because he has to put on the ring in order to have like an actual superpower. But when it comes to super powered popular Black individuals, a lot of them tend to just stray towards electricity.
Damn it! I didn't. I was just like my brain was
Even
like,
Miles, even Miles Morales, part of his
Right, he's got
power
the
is
little
he
Yeah,
stings.
electric,
the electric spider.
the
Yeah.
electric spark. Yeah.
That's
electric.
his
That
his
stinger
name
thing.
in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, or Spidey and His Amazing Friends on Disney Plus, which if you have children, please watch it because it's so good.
I still haven't gotten to it, but I will.
What is he? He's called Spin, and they're like he's always like shocking people or doing things and like hiding.
Wait, his name is called
cloaking.
Spin?
They don't ask. It's very confusing. It's confusing, but it makes sense for the children. So they have all three Spider Men or Spider Girl. They, instead of calling them Spider Man and confusing the children, they're like, okay, there's Spidey, who's the original Spidey, Peter Parker, and then there's Miles Morales, who is Spin, and then there's Spider Gwen, who is Ghost Spider. They just are like, do that. It makes it easier for the children to digest that all of these people are Spider-Men, and yet they are all different and have different powers.
I feel triggered.
Nobody can be Spider-Man.
I've been waiting so much for Miles to come in. I'm just like, Spin.
No, it's very cute because it's literally for kindergarteners. If they tried to explain, it would be confusing for that age bracket.
Spin.
But
why
yeah.
Spin though?
Or,
Don't ask
yeah,
me. Don't ask me questions.
See, my conspiracy theory was kicking in right there. It's like,
I don't understand I have no answers because they don't say it in the show, so I didn't even think to like even be like why, because it's for what it is. It's very cute. He speaks Spanish sometimes, and I'm like, great. That's all I want in a Miles Morales. Like he's like, hola, mommy, and I'm like, yay.
So does he get to check the other box on the self-ident on the I-9 form? He's Hispanic and Black, which is Miles Morales now.
Yeah.
Let me check.
Yeah, he would be Black or a Black Hispanic or Latino. Yeah.
Or I guess whatever he considers himself as, right?
Yeah, whatever he can say. Well, being raised by his mother, I would say that would be a strong connection to his Latin roots. Though I would love for them to explore that a little bit more. I know they did a lot in what's it called? The video game, the Miles Morales video game.
Yeah, I didn't get to play that one because I unfortunately don't have a PS5, and I would play those Spider-Man games all day if I had one. I played the first one on my friend's PS4, and I was like, I'm gonna race to this game because I have this for like 2 days, and I will beat this game in 2 days just to get that story out. I was like, I want to beat this story. I want to know the story.
Oof, that's a lot.
I play the first one as well. I have a PS4, but I don't have a PS5, so.
The Miles Morales is on PS4 for sure. I know that the next Spider-Man is not going to be.
I refuse the downgraded versions of anything.
So.
When I get my PS5, I will play it.
Okay.
They're releasing a sequel for Spider-Man 2.
Yeah,
where you can play as both of them, right?
I believe so.
But I don't remember there being a trailer for it or something like that, and I'm like, "Oh, this is nice."
Yes.
I'm down for this Spider-Man story. I don't even know what's going to happen. Wait, we can't talk about No Way Home.
No, we can't.
Well,
We
Nope,
can't.
nope.
We are recording
Okay.
this in December,
No, 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 no.
everybody.
All right.
Oh,
I have not seen it. so sorry.
Fine. Just taking the joy out of my spoilers here. But
When,
no,
when is a
I'm
safe zone? I
excited.
don't know if
This is
I'm
a great
sorry.
question. No, safe zone for talking
When
about
is a safe
spoilers.
zone? Like how long do we have to wait before we can openly talk about a movie to be fair to viewers?
I think for a holiday movie, a movie that came out during winter break, you wait till the end of winter break.
Yeah, it means beginning of January.
Like
Yeah.
to talk about it, but you include, of course, that spoilers are going to be in this conversation because it's still spoilers. If the movies are still in theaters, technically,
By the time this comes out, it's gonna be like April or March. Like, if you haven't watched it by then, that's your own damn fault.
That's your
I don't know how
own
to.
fault.
No,
You're
I
just
will.
not a
I will
real
have seen it
fan
by
at
then.
that point.
No, I
It's,
know you will have
you're
it, but I'm
hating.
talking about like anybody else who's listening to this.
No, I'm just like,
No,
you
no,
can't
no.
be wearing that Spider-Man shirt and not have seen that movie by now.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
No, I'm
Started going
I've
back
been,
and doing lines. I'm
Mhm.
going in
I'm excited for
specifically.
the Miles Morales. For not for anything else, but like for the Into the Spider-Verse, like that storyline
yeah,
to
that
me.
comes out next year.
Yeah, that comes out next year, and I was like, ooh, I was wondering when they were going to get back to that. I'm actually really excited about it because that's one movie where I'm like, I don't actually know who the villain could possibly be in this series because the first one had like he was facing like there was Green Goblin already, there was Kingpin, you've got a Lady Ock. I was like, I don't know who you're gonna bring in. I don't know who you're gonna do this for. So I was just like,
a ton of villains though.
it's strange to me.
Yeah,
It's like when I think about like new Black heroes, like that was like, we're going to do a diversity double whammy. Here's one who's Black and Latino. That's what we're going to do right now. And I was like, okay, that's fine. That's cool.
I mean, it's crazy how Miles has only existed for like 10 years.
Correct.
Like it's been like 2011, I think, if I remember correctly, what I was reading. Like,
oh, that's
Miles
right,
Morales.
because Ultimate, he was an Ultimate, the Ultimate comic book storyline, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Peter Parker died?
Sure, probably.
I can't recall.
I know
No,
nothing.
I don't think he died. I don't think he died. There was a situation where in Marvel comic books, probably in the last 10 years or so, where everybody became the whole city were getting spider powers. Like every single person that exists in New York City.
Spider-Verse, great.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was in the actual city that
You're talking
Spider-Man
about
lived
Spider
in.
Island. You're talking about Spider Island.
Yeah. Everybody was getting spider powers, and so they became the spider deity and all kind of stuff. So just like they have with the Venom and the deity of the symbiote, deity.
That's right.
So yeah, everybody gets all kind of Hulk powers. They sometimes they don't know what to do, so they give everybody all these powers, and then they take it all away, and to make the main person important again. But I want to know how you guys feel about like Miles Morales, right? Because I want Miles Morales to have his own come out and be out there for everybody beyond the Spider-Verse cartoons. But I think they've messed up with Spider-Man, the Peter Parker Spider-Man, so much that I personally, and being a fan of the comics, would like to see Tom Holland, or at least hopefully, his version get enough time to mature into a Spider-Man, get a certain amount of time before they throw Miles Morales in, because then you kind of make it seem like Spider-Man was never really the original. Right. It's like, okay, so you just got two Spider-Men. They're both almost the same age. It's not that big of a deal.
Okay. Right. Well, here's my question to you, Omar. Is like have you seen No Way Home?
No, he didn't see it.
No.
Okay.
I'm the one who hasn't.
Not even to like give it. My question here is that even without like having seen it, my whole thing was that he was gonna. I believe that Tom Holland is supposed to play Spider-Man for quite a while, at least into the realm of like being like, because a lot of people would be like, oh, I really want to see Spider-Man from like a freshman in high school. Like I want him to be the youngest person actually and grow up into like an older man. Like to see that progression of him as a young adult. And my brain is thinking, I would love to see that progression. Like I could take Tom Holland as Spider-Man over 6 films at some point being like an Avenger and maybe a leader at some point. Cool, great. But I think that there's something to be said that I would be great with Miles Morales coming in where Peter is older than Miles and he has to take like a guardianship over Miles. Would that be something that you'd be down with, or would that like?
Oh, of course. I think for me it's just when, right? It's just a matter of when.
Mhm.
And as much as we need Miles Morales for representation, we said representation is important, right?
Yeah.
As much as we need Miles to come out, I think that what Sony's kind of messed up on the Spider-Man at the tail end of the last 2 times they did it, that now we're getting new Spider-Man all over again. And he's still right now, he's 16, 17 years old, maybe, right? And
He might be
si-
18.
He's
maybe.
17, 18. He's
might
about.
be.
He's
Well, he
finishing high
was.
school.
He said he
He's
was
finishing high
16.
school.
We watched
Well, they
Spider-Man
were
2 the other day, and
Well,
he said he was 16. So if this one picks up right after, he's still 16, 17, something like that.
yeah, they're in their well, when do you apply for
Mm-mm.
school?
This one
they have
it
that
definitely
weird
is
high
about,
school
it's
though,
about
where
high school.
they
It's their last. It's
where
their
they
last year.
flip.
So
Right.
he's about 17 years old on
Mhm.
average.
Yeah,
He's about
on
17.
average, yes.
So it's a bit early for a Miles Morales. And what is he going to be like? How's he going to take him under his wing? Is he going to be a 14-year-old? Like it's
It
like
would have to
he
be a
he should
crazy
get a
passage
chance
of
to be
time.
kind of like a man at least for a little bit of time. Be a grown man, and then you learn some lessons in the world that you can genuinely pass down. If like even though their experiences as superheroes make them have to mature a lot faster than probably we would have to.
Mhm.
Um, I think there are some lessons in life to be learned if you're gonna kind of guide somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Tom Holland has said that he's going to be taking. He wants to take a little bit of a break. So I think. I mean, Tom
Yeah, he
is
did say that.
24 years old.
No, he's 25 because he's the same age as Zendaya.
I love that relationship. By the way, I love that. I love that relationship.
Especially
I swing
in
hard
this
for that.
time.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all.
Kind of getting back to the original subject matter. Why, in terms of why it got to be black, why is Miles' suit black? Is it because he's black? So many questions. I was just
Oh,
thinking
because
about it while we were talking.
It's one of those things.
I don't know in the context of the series if there's like a reason actually, but
No, I think fact of the matter is it's just cooler. It's one of those
Sure.
things. It's
sleeker.
the whole Venom series, like Spider-Man in the 80s when they were trying to make him cool again, symbiote black suit.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yep.
so it is one of those things. Reboot him again. Hey, better make him black with a black suit. It's like that episode of Family Feud, things that just are sexier when they're black. I put people at the top of that list, bro.
I think so. I think they tried a little bit. I've been watching a lot of Bully Maguire. I don't know if you guys know what that is,
No.
but it's
Bully Maguire?
there's so many videos I've been watching over the past like 3 or 4 days, and it's Toby Maguire, and he's doing all these crazy things, but he's always in his black suit where he was dancing, doing this and wiggling his pelvis and all that kind of stuff. But
I'm
they
dead.
they put him into all kind of scenes. They have one with him and Steve Harvey in Family Feud,
Right.
but they have
Oh,
him
no.
fighting Winter Soldier instead of Captain America. They have all kind of stuff, and he's always saying lines. It's like magic. They took video and lines. They even have one with him
I wish I had the
with
time.
Tom Holland and Zendaya, where Peter was actually going to see Mary Jane in the theater, but they took the scene from Spider-Man 2 when Tom Holland and Zendaya were in the theater, and then they walked out because they didn't want to
Mhm.
be there anymore.
Yeah.
They spliced it, they put it together. It's just crazy. So they call it Bully Maguire. If you just put Bully Maguire in,
Yeah.
you get so many videos,
I'm dead.
and it's funny
I'm
how
gonna
they.
watch it and it'll be
It's
your fault.
hilarious.
Why are you
Great.
wasting time, Richard? Well,
All,
I had to
all
watch
the
Bully
Bully
Maguire.
Maguire memes and videos are great. They're all great.
Hilarious.
But no, I just
Own
looked.
it.
I just looked this up. The origin of Miles' suit was by Nick Fury and Spider-Gwen, and I was because I wasn't sure because I remember I was like I know I read some of these comic books. I read that before the Ultimate, another geek stuff is like there was the Marvel 616 universe, which is all about Peter Parker, and then at some point I think it was 2001 where they made an Ultimate like storyline of comic books where they were like, we're gonna just take characters and make them Ultimate versions so that we can just mess around with them and like people can die. Like Wolverine died. I think Magneto like killed a bunch of people and
Sure.
But Spider-Man was still white though. He was still Peter Parker.
Yeah, he was still Peter Parker, but he dies because Green Goblin finds out who he is and tries to fight him outside of his home. He tries to kill Aunt May and Mary Jane, and he dies in that battle. Peter Parker dies in that battle, and Miles gets bit by a spider. That's where the whole Prowler thing came along. And then like in that storyline, if I remember, oh my gosh. Yeah, no, keep going.
I was gonna say, do you know who did become black out of the Ultimate Universe?
Who did become black?
Nick Fury.
Nick Fury, yeah.
That's where he turned. That's where all of a sudden he was a black guy.
Yeah, they asked him. There was a little.
All of a sudden,
he
he was specifically Samuel L. Jackson, and Samuel L. Jackson said, "Not today. You're gonna pay me for this." Or
you're gonna pay me for this. I remember that. Oh my gosh, yeah. But that's the only thing. Like before they destroyed like all of the Ultimate Universe, he got something happened where he got sucked into the original universe, and he doesn't have his own universe anymore. Like that's why oh god, that's just
Miles is what you're talking about.
Yeah. Miles is not from 616. The Miles that's in the comic books right now is from the Ultimate Universe because the Galactus there destroyed everything. And they really wanted to stop doing the Ultimate storyline. They wanted to stop doing Ultimate Comics because one, too many people were dying. They didn't like the way that they were doing the Avengers or the Ultimates of that. Like there was this whole big thing. I've forgotten so much about it, but like, Peter Parker died in that one.
Okay. So Miles basically, so they wanted to keep him because we like to see him.
They liked him. Yeah. They liked him. They liked him a lot.
Speaking of Nick Fury, that transformation of Nick Fury is one of the most fascinating things that I will always think about in every day of my life. I'm just like, oh, so we're going to go from like really like every time I think about original Nick Fury and how he looks, I just think of David Hasselhoff, but like
that's kind of the look.
There was the picture of him with the eye patch, and he was
right.
Yeah.
Was it a Punisher movie? Was he like?
No, I think he was. I think he was rumored to be Nick Fury, and then I don't know if he was. It was something else. He was definitely not Punisher though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's been three. There's
either Captain America or
have there been
four movies back in like the 80s. I mean, I really think this is a thing because it was bad.
My brain somehow remembers David Hasselhoff having like the silver temples and eye patch
and a cigar.
But to go from that, and then they were like, we need to black this up a little bit, a lot of it, to Samuel L. Jackson of all the people that they could have been like, let's make him Denzel Washington-esque. Let's make him. They could have anything, but they said Samuel L. Jackson.
Nah, I found it. It says Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., 1998.
Oh, yeah, that thing. Yeah.
Oh,
okay,
it was.
That's what I thought.
Oh, wow.
I haven't seen it, but I remembered. I was like, I've seen a picture somewhere or a trailer. Can't remember which one. I don't know. I was 7.
Don't hassle the Hoff.
Don't hassle the Hoff. He needs business. But I do think that transformation is interesting when they decide to make characters every once in a while, when they like really decide to take a character and change their background or ethnicity or something. It's really interesting to see where that thought process comes from, because obviously most of the Black characters that we know and love today were created by white people to start, because there were no Black people at these levels of power writing for these companies. So to see the way that their brains have worked over the years, however slow it may have been at some times, to see how their brains have worked to get to where we are today is really interesting. And like, obviously we have, as you mentioned, I don't remember if it was just now, but like you mentioned Milestone, we were talking about Static. So that Milestone has its own like thing. They're partnering with Ally. Did you see they partnered with Ally Bank?
No.
Milestone Media partnered with Ally Bank to give new comic book creators a chance. They're like, please, like, apply for like some kind of program or some kind of grant that they're partnering with together. So Milestone Media is really trying to make, like, I don't know if a comeback is the word that I would say, but like be in the popular zeitgeist so that they can start making movies of their things that deserve it just as much of attention as the original, the more popular fare, as it were.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. I did not know that. That's new.
Yeah,
I like
I was really excited about it
Mm.
because I love, like I said, I love Static. And I've been learning a lot about Milestone Media in preparation for all of this, obviously. So I'm excited to see what the original creators are still like involved heavily with Milestone Media. So I'm excited to see what they have in store for the franchise.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Going back to the theme again, why does Superman got to be black? The new Michael B. Jordan movie that they're making, instead
I
of
don't know.
instead of bringing out Icon or something, like, why?
This is my question. That's
Sorry,
my
keep going.
question. No, that's just my
That's the
question.
thing?
Yes.
I got into a
that's
fight
Yes.
about this.
It's an actual thing.
It's a fight. Tell me the fight. I would like to hear it.
Well, I was like, when I've always, like, I love, as I said, Superman's my favorite. And I've never even once, even from the beginning of like learning about him, I was just like, oh, he's Kryptonian. He looks white, but that doesn't mean he needs to be white. Like, for me, Clark Kent has never needed to be white at all. And it's a thing where I'm like, I understand the origin, like he was made by two Jewish authors. And there's reasons behind that, because just the fact that they're white and Jewish, and they just want their Superman to be like an Everyman. And I get that. But there's something that I got into a fight over where I was like, yeah, Superman could be black. I'm excited for Superman to be black. And someone was like, no, Superman needs to be white. He needs to be white. He's always going to be white. Like, that's just the way it has to be.
Please tell me it's an argument, not a fight. No, go ahead.
No. Come on.
It's like, it was weird. I was like, it was definitely on Facebook, and then like we got into this argument on Facebook,
Where all
and
the
like all
conversations
this
happen.
swarm of people were just like, what the fuck is going on with it? Like, it's just this huge racism swarm of people. Like, people were just like, you don't know what the hell you're talking. And I was like, I don't understand. You have a character that is from a different planet. And like, I understand where you can be like, all right, this is a little weird. They look like, but I was like, he's a Kryptonian. He's not American. He's not Russian. He's not anything about earthly at all. He doesn't have to, he can look green for all I freaking care, but he doesn't have to look white. Clark Kent does not have to be white. He has to look like a human because he can fit in, I guess. But
right.
like,
because then he's just Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, but with Michael B. Jordan, and like, there's two things going around. Michael B. Jordan's doing his own Superman show about a specific character, while Ta-Nehisi Coates is writing a Superman script where Superman will be black, which has nothing to do with that show. And then Henry Cavill is like, I still would like to be Superman, which I'm like, you know what?
Right.
He can still be Superman. He just needs a better script. You need to write him the right way. Like, I'm like, don't chip over Henry. He's great.
Is it too late for me to get on this? Can I be Superman?
Because you're like, everybody's Superman. It's a party.
I like the idea that I can be Superman, and I don't like the fact that someone can be like, I'm white, he has been white, and I need to take this away from you. I'm just like, you're stay away from me.
I think that I would never say from that perspective, like, no, Superman's always been white, so he has to be white. That would never be my personal perspective. My thing is, Icon exists, and I like Icon's story. Can we just tell Icon's story? Because I think that's more interesting, to, in a world where Superman exists, to also have this other person who has existed and had a radically different experience from him. I think that that's the reason why I'm not into the Black Superman thing, only because Icon exists. In the same breath, like, I always talk about how I have reasons why I think Batman could be black. It would, like, there's a lot of conversation that I would have to go into, like, my thought process. We can say for another episode, but there's no real equivalent in the DC world of a black Bruce Wayne in that same mental vein, and that same, like, it's just not the same to me. So because Icon already exists, that's why I'm not into the whole Black Superman idea. I would love to see what they do. I'm not gonna like throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. But I would love them to tell Icon's story, because very few people know. When I saw Young Justice, I think that's the first time I knew who Icon was, and I was like, who is this person? Oh, I would love to read everything about you, because I think you're the most fascinating character here.
Icon is dope.
Batwing was African Batman, chosen by Batman to be Batman for Africa.
Right.
So
yeah.
There are so many opportunities, I think, just for that idea of reimagining the heroes in the universe that we're from.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the things we're thinking. Eric Jerome Dickey's last book, he had this whole comic series that his character was writing about an island of Kryptonians that were darker of color, that ended up in different places around the universe with different powers and perspectives that they brought to the universe. And so there's more room to write different things now that it's just not one category of people writing the things. I think that's what you started to see even in the evolution of the names of the characters, their origin stories. Not everybody was just, a street level criminal. You do have evolution, because I think the whole Storm and Black Panther marriage series, the writing in that was a game changer. And I was like, oh, he writes novels about Black people all the time. I love this.
So, but go, Amr.
Yeah. So one thing, okay. I think Icon is kind of like an amalgam between Superman and Martian Manhunter anyway, because they're shapeshifters. Originally, he takes the form of whatever, and then long life and all that kind of stuff, right? But going back, I kind of feel like, I'm not really as interested in a Black Superman per se, unless he's from a different universe, and which makes more sense to me. I don't want to see I don't want a Black Clark Kent personally. And there's a reason why Black Panther, the movie, was as powerful as it was. It's because he was an originally Black character. It wasn't kind of like a hand-me-down. It wasn't like something that was made for someone and then turned into something else. And so that's the reason why it's so powerful, why Icon is a better representation to me. Because when you take Bruce Wayne or somebody else and you say, hey, let's just make him a Black guy. It's time for a change. We want to see something different. It won't feel the same. People won't come out for it the same. They won't feel. I can't speak for everybody, but it won't hit the same way as Black Panther did. It won't, not even remotely, because there's something. It won't feel original to us as Black people as a whole. It won't feel. It'll feel like something that was passed down.
But see, here's the.
Yeah,
I definitely hear that. I think my thing is like, and I can see
Superman's
where
my favorite, by the way. So I mean,
no, I love that bottle. I love that bottle. That's great. I'm jealous of that bottle. If you see it disappear, it's because I took it. No, I just. I
gotta have you here, man. Gotta get you up.
No,
just FOMO.
No,
so
I think
FOMO.
it's because I honestly am like Superman. I think it's just because I think of Superman as like, this is a person who I truly believe could be any color, really any color that anyone can recognize and be like, ooh, that's part of my people. It's like he doesn't. It's like it's this weird thing in my brain where I'm like, this is a person who just exists to do good because he feels like he can and that it should happen. And it's not based on him having to be white, but like white people will like cling to him and be like, this has to be white. And I'm just like, that it's the everyman aspect of being like, this is the granddaddy of superheroes. This is the person who stands up for everyone. Like that entitlement of like that virtue has to be white. That really just gets me in a specific place. And so like I think my brain would be like, I would love to see what it would be like if it was like, yeah, the Kent family is not white. Like the Kent family could be just Asian farmers or a Black family, or like there's something about like I would love to understand or at least look at that situation from not a white centric perspective. That's all. It's not even something that I could feel like that's where it needs to be the norm and like everyone needs to accept it or everyone needs to go out for it. But there's something about that idea that I would love to explore first before someone decides to like mess with it in a different way.
I think Wes. I think Western
Yeah.
ideology makes that really difficult because the everyman is always white. White is neutral. There's no neutrality in being a person of color or being a marginalized identity in Western society. There's always things get better as time goes on. Like obviously, we had Adetinpo on, and she played a person in a same-sex marriage. But they didn't talk about it. She was just like, my wife made me this bag. And that was the end of it. And you were like, oh, she's married. Great. And then it wasn't a big deal. I think but when it comes to race in particular, it's really difficult for people to wrap their heads around a Black person being the everyman. Because when you, in Black Panther, it's still very cultural. It's African. It's there's a layer on top of it that makes people be like, oh, cool. This is different from the everyman story from the Luke
that's
Skywalker,
even different from
the Luke
African.
Skywalker. Sure, from
because it's like I mean, it's different from American and African because Wakanda is specifically a country that doesn't deal with race from any person at all. That African has had to deal with, and that America has had to deal with. Like that's why I think that's why Wakanda was so refreshing because it's like this is a whole group of Black people that are like we don't have to deal with it.
But Nakia's purpose in that was to say we have ignored these people for far too long. Correct, so it's not like they ignore like throughout the history of Black Panther. I'm sure that they've ignored it at various points, but in the movie specifically, they started the entire story about being like, back in the ancient days, there were slaves, but then there was Wakanda, and we are a haven for Black people, and we have not had to deal with that because we don't allow in outsiders, and we don't go outside, and that's these are these walls, and this is what we do. And so I think that T'Challa was not an everyman. I'm trying to think of a story in which, like Star Wars, etc., in which the character is of color and we're supposed to align with them as the everyman. And I don't think that's it.
I don't think it exists. I don't think it exists.
I have a question for you, Jamal. Superman's your favorite character, right?
Yes.
You said that was your entry, same as me, right? And remember, I said I have my origin story is one of conflict because Superman is my favorite character, Marvel's is my favorite universe, but also Superman being my favorite character, but he's not Black, and I don't want a Black Superman. So that's, I guess, a story of conflict, right? But is it because he's your favorite character that you want to see a Black Superman, Clark Kent specifically, or is it because they have Icon, and they can also create a story of someone just like Superman who has a similar story, whose origin is just that he's Black with a totally different name? And would that sit well for you, or is it you want that character to be? You want Clark Kent, the character you loved from a kid, to be Black?
I think it's a little bit of both of where, like, because of the fact that Clark Kent, there's something specifically about, like, when we're talking about, like, Batman and Superman, like, Batman is the disguise for, Bruce Wayne is the disguise for Batman.
Yeah.
Like, Superman is the disguise for Clark Kent. There's something specifically about Clark Kent that I have always appreciated, and that's why I think he's my favorite. Because there's something, even when it comes to, like, Kryptonians in general, like Clark stands out from them, or Kal-El stands out from them because he makes decisions that even his own people wouldn't make. Like there's something specifically different about Kal-El or Clark Kent as a character.
Right.
And because of that, race as a factor is only a thing about us in general in humanity as a race. That's something that, I don't know, Superman doesn't even subscribe to. It's just the way it has been, but it doesn't need to be that way. It's not part of the story. It's not part of his story. So I think because of the fact that it's not part of that story, it can change. It can change.
I think it's only been allowed to not be part of his story because he presents as white.
I was going to say that because it's not part of his story. It's the same way. It's the same way.
I would agree with you. You're correct.
Cannot notice certain things because because they're in the position they're in. It's easy for them not to be a part of their story if they don't have to experience certain things.
Correct.
Also, he's a corn-fed farm boy from Kansas. Like when you think of that, I certainly don't think of Black people. And so, like, that's not to say, of course, there aren't plenty of former sharecroppers or families that own land.
No, but there are farmers. There are black farmers. There are black
Of course
families.
there are.
They do.
Of course there are. But that being said, Clark's life would be radically different. He would not be friends with Lex Luthor in any capacity.
Right, and see,
he would. It just would not happen. Especially for the times that most of these stories were written, and because in the parallels between Marvel and DC, you have Captain America and Superman, and they represent truth, justice in the American way, whether or not they're American. Or
well, Clark and Lex weren't friends in that origin.
No, I know, but in some Smallville, but like, but like.
Okay, so you don't think Clark and Lex would have been friends if Lex was white and Clark was black, and that time period when Smallville was set after he saves his life in that first episode? You don't think they would be
friends? I don't
think
so. Not if
the writers approached it realistically.
Yeah, realistically.
Not if the writers approached it realistically.
Because
I got to disagree.
I don't think because the father would not. The father. It's not about Lex himself. It's about the father. Lionel.
Yeah, but Lionel and Jonathan Kent didn't like each other regardless.
And he would like him even less if he was black.
But I'm saying like that.
Any relationship
something extremely
continue.
Important here.
Yeah, go.
There's something extremely important. Specifically about Superman. If you've seen Krypton, the show, you see that they kept Superman, Clark Kent, or his parents, his grandparents, they kept them white, but Zod is black.
But Zod is black.
You know what I'm saying? So he's a bad guy. So I mean, there's a lot. So when they write, they know what they're doing, and it'll be very hard to keep things realistic, like Zuri was saying, and make Clark to have been black and have the same without writing about issues that they go through, which is why some people would rather not even touch on those topics. They're like, you got to explain this too much backstory, you got to create all this side stuff. Nope, we want to keep it clean.
But I want
to keep it clean.
Yes, I just want to. This is the thing that's really affecting me when it comes to this conversation. Is that what both Zuri and Omar, what you both say is I understand and I actually feel that is keeping it clean and not having to deal with a lot of stuff that would come with that choice. My problem here is that it seems to me that the idea of having an everyman being a black person, I'm bringing this up because I just auditioned for a show that's technically going to Broadway next year, whether Broadway tries to survive or not, which is all about like being an everyman, and they're trying to use a black family to do that. I think at some point, instead of worrying about like what the conversation or the aftermath is of making that decision, you just have to try it for one time. Just try it. Just see what happens. Because I'm more interested in like what the aftermath of making that choice is, what the conversation is about that choice, instead of just avoiding it altogether because of what could be.
I don't think it should be avoided. That's not what I'm saying. It's not about avoiding it or not. But you can't. Just because these characters exist doesn't mean that the writers who are behind them still are a part of the culture. So these white writers, for the most part, because again, it's still primarily a white centered writing experience, but you can't erase it from any part of anything. It's not possible. So any white person who even thinks they're doing a good thing is still going to come from the perspective of being a white person in Western society. It's just not possible to get over. So I'm not saying I'm not saying that it should be avoided. I would love for Black people to be the everyman. I would love for for that to be a thing. But we already know what the response is going to be because that's what people do. When Eternals came out, they bombed that movie on Rotten Tomatoes just because they were like, no, like they were mad about
But does that mean you shouldn't do it?
No, I'm not saying that means you shouldn't do it, but I'm saying they know exactly what the response is going to be. And most of these companies are still full of scared white people. And I will say that till the day I die. Scared white people don't like to fight. I will fight everybody.
The bottom line, I still haven't seen Eternals. I have not heard.
Yeah, I know. I'm keeping out of
good things from. I heard you said something good, but nobody else I've heard. But I don't know. I haven't seen it. I have no opinion on it.
I know. I'm not spoiling anything.
That's next. That's next in my line. But, I totally understand where you're coming from, just like you understand where we're coming from. I think when it comes down to it, it's the bottom line, what makes the most sense financially. So then taking that chance is going to hit their pockets, right? And then
Yes.
secondly, you know, there's going to be where you and I we understand each other, but we may disagree. I think that that disagreement would be would consume the project, right? It would
Mm-hmm.
consume the project, and the people maybe who are on my side would say that's not at all. I don't feel connected to that character as a black
Hmm.
person. I don't feel connected because that wouldn't have been my story. Even if I had a little bit more money or if things were different, kind of, I
Hmm.
know the things that black people go through and what we have to deal with, and little, whether it be overt, covert racism, microaggressions, little things like that affect every little decision that you make over time.
Right.
So
Right.
it changes what's going to happen to these characters. It
Right.
can't be the same.
Because it's
Well, here's
color
my
blind versus color conscious.
yes,
Hmm.
yes,
An icon is
which is
color
correct.
conscious.
But
Right. Continue.
my
Right.
thing is like, if we're talking about everyman stories, like, I only bring this up because like I found when I watched Into the Spider-Verse, like sure you've got Peter Parker here, but Miles Morales, as I felt like his family, even though it's multicultural and you've got these kind of things, I don't think anyone watches that story and says I can't relate to what I can't find my way in here, and I think gosh, this is so hard to describe, but my brain is thinking, listen, I understand that there are things that are realistic about being a person of color, living a person of color's life. I get that. But in the same way when I watch Star Wars, it has its own set of rules. So I would love for them to actually just commit to putting a black lead in a freaking movie and just following that black lead and not having to give it to a white woman and not having to just bombard it with having just white centered pieces the entire time is the way that I feel about Superman, of being like, this is a person who could technically be every single color. And yes, there's a responsibility that you could put in here about like how he goes about doing his day. But the idea of saying I am a person who just chooses to do the right thing doesn't have to be on a specific color. Like that essence of character, I think, could still be done. And even more, even if you were to change the color of what he looks like just going in, I think that opens more story opportunities and more conversation and not less. Like there's something about where I understand that bottom line, but I think that there's something powerful to be mined here if people were to take that chance instead of one just going back to the bottom of the barrel, rebooting everything and telling the same story. Like I just think that there's something to be mined here that would be just as important and maybe powerful in a way that no one has seen before. And I would just be more interested in wondering what that conversation would be, just to see it happen, just to see it.
So, and
Which is
yeah,
why I
I
think
would be
So I
icon
could
should
know.
happen.
That's all.
but
So I could know.
and so like what I said about how I might not be able to connect, um on the other end there may be a lot of white people who might be like, that's not my everyman. So
Mhm.
it's I think that that is it's a very scary project to take
Because
on.
as long as the
It's a very
majority of Western society is white,
hmm
this conversation will just remain a conversation.
right.
Mhm.
Like
Right.
it's really hard for a people who have never had to think of themselves as white,
Right.
because they don't even think that. They're
Hmm.
like, I'm just a person.
Mhm.
Right,
And
because it's
so,
easy to do that in that
right.
position. Yeah.
Right. It's easy to do that in that position. It's really hard for them to understand, which is like part of the reason why they hate Eternals. There's so many different kinds of people, and
Mhm.
we're not just focusing on the dude from Game of Thrones. We're not like, and I think I hear what you're saying. I'm not saying that I think it's worth pursuing. I just know that these major studios are not going to do that, or at
Mhm.
least are not going to do it in a way that I think will give the full totality of what the character would then deserve. Because I think Clark Kent would have a radically different life, um, especially depending on the time period. A Clark Kent coming to Earth now, maybe it'd be
It
different.
might have a chance. Yeah.
He might have a
Yeah.
chance, but
Yeah.
a Clark Kent 60 years ago, absolutely fucking
No,
not.
of course not. That
You
would
know,
that would be an extremely
Right.
different story. I'm just saying, like,
Right.
I think that there's, gosh, my brain is thinking that there's got to be ways to expand an ideas, someone's imagination or someone's ability to connect. I heard this quote a long time ago about maybe 2 months ago, and it's been ringing in my head. And sometimes I agree with it, and sometimes I don't. Someone said that there are two instances of which someone can really not connect to, and that is giving life, and that is taking it, and that's it. And I was like, okay, if that's true, then in any other situation, even when it comes to like race, you can just divvy it down to like shame, joy, happiness, like pain, like all of the situations that we say like, oh, that person's never going to understand. Like if you just only have like, unless you've taken the life or given life, those are the really times when you really can't connect with someone. I think that there are ways to expand people's imagination and a way to connect with people that we just don't allow to happen. And I think like I think people need to really be challenged. Genuinely, they need to be challenged.
I agree. I 1,000% agree, but I'll leave it with this. When you try to tell people that X-Men is about the fight between Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, like ideologically speaking, they say no, and they fight you on it, even though
I'd be like,
true.
you're wrong.
Like,
And the time period matches up too.
Right. And so
matches.
I hear what I you're 100% correct, but it's already been experimented, and people are like, even today, you can find 20-year-old white nerds who are like, no, it's just a kicking and screaming kind of thing. They'll go fighting till the end.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, I just want to wrap us up because I know we've been talking forever. But I'll let Omar, you can start up.
Okay, everybody. My name is Omar Washington, he, him, and you can't catch me on social media currently, but that will change. In the meanwhile, you'll be able to catch me here.
Hey, everybody. My name is Jamal James. He, him, his. You can also find me on Instagram at the Jamal James. I'm also on Facebook and sometimes Twitter.
And Rich had to go. He secretly slipped out halfway through, but you can find him, he, him pronouns on Richard_Harden on Instagram. And I'm Zuri Washington, she, her pronouns. You can find me at Zuri with a fringe on top on IG. And it was really nice to talk to y'all about this. I hope to see y'all again. And don't forget, should you need heroes, we've got your back. We fear no topic, we attack. If conversation is what you lack, you'll find it here with Super Black. Bye.
Peace.
Bye.